Hello fellow humans! So as you probably know by now, I am a big Harry Potter fan, but I've never really had the whole book set. I've only owned one book because I didn't really deem it necessary. I don't really reread the books that often, actually. I'm terrible when it comes to reading, so I just never had the full book set. But this year, my brother's getting into it and he's reading all the books, and so we just decided to buy a set. Well, technically we're buying the books one by one, or he is kind of like me and he has a bit of an obsession problem and then he just goes through and reads all the books at once if we got them for him. So we're just buying him one book at a time so he can pace himself. That being said, eventually I will have the full book set, and I'm also getting myself a new bookshelf, so I wanted to embark on my most ambitious project yet, and that is making 7 book nooks to add into my bookshelf which correspond to each book. Now, I wanted to do this. I've wanted book nooks for a while. I just never really had a proper bookshelf to put them in. I did make 2, but they kind of look like socks after they've been sitting at the bottom of a river for 3 days. So I do want to improve on what I've done and also want to make something new and cool that I can display in my room. That being said, it's a really ambitious project because 1, I'm not really that talented, and 2, it is my last year at school and I have a lot of work to do, so it's going to be difficult for me to actually spend that much time making 7 dioramas for myself. However, I do have the option of employing my brother's help, who is incredibly talented at crafts. Oh my goodness, I'm jealous. But this is just going to be a video of the planning of that entire process because I can't really get into 7 dioramas in one video and right now. So those are going to probably be coming out over the course of this year, but for now, let's just get into the planning. And another reason why this project is so difficult is because I don't actually have the measurements of the books yet, and I also don't have the measurement of the bookshelf yet, so I'm kind of just blindly hoping that whatever book nooks I make actually end up fitting the actual thing. Now, I had to make a lot of considerations into what sets I would be recreating, and at first I thought that I wanted to have all 4 house common rooms, but then it was like Hufflepuff's common room never shows up, and Ravenclaw's common room isn't particularly like the height of the Deathly Hallows, which is the only time it shows up. So I figured that those 2 houses didn't really matter in terms of my own recreation of this. But Slytherin's common room matters, 1, because I am a Slytherin, and 2, I didn't know what other set that I could make for the Chamber of Secrets book. Now, I did want to make each set at least try and correspond to each book, so Slytherin's common room makes sense for the Chamber of Secrets because it's all about the heir of Slytherin and all, and in all honesty, making a Chamber of Secrets would have kind of sucked. It would have been one of my other very boring sets because I already have like 2 of these already, and it also only would have had Salazar Slytherin's face on it, and 1, I'm not talented enough to make that, and 2, it wouldn't have been that whimsical and mystical to look at. So I just settled on having a scene that I grab from each movie and do that. Movie and book. So for the first book, I decided to go with the Hogwarts Express. That's because I searched up videos of other people who have made dioramas, and one of them came up was the Hogwarts Express by the Propping Block, and it looked really cool. And I also figured that it was just the perfect way to start off my line of book nooks and dioramas with just the vessel that the students use to get to Hogwarts. So that's going to be my Philosopher's Stone book nook. Now, for Chamber of Secrets, as I mentioned before, I scrapped the idea of actually doing the Chamber of Secrets and settled on Slytherin's common room instead. And first, I wanted to add these like really tall, long glass windows, which I felt would be the perfect view of the lake, and they would also give the room a particular ambiance. In real life, technically, not exactly in my little miniature set, because I'm not really going to be able to put a lake next to it. But I took a few creative liberties with this. Most of my ideas just came from searching up Slytherin common room on Google and seeing the top results. But also I did take some creative liberties with this. Some of the photos that I use will probably be of my own choice. And also I added in a bookcase because that's what I would want. And I obviously am the sole representative for all Slytherins, so you better flock to me. I do already hate myself though, because even just drawing out this bookcase, I was like, man, this is so many books. And I know I'm going to actually hate myself when I actually start making this bookcase. But if I succeed, it's gonna look pretty good. So that's just a problem for future me. Now, by far, the most popular Harry Potter book nook that is made is Diagon Alley, and so I took the propping block suggestion for this and I basically mishmashed Hogsmeade and Diagon Alley into one, because I can still have the same look of this alleyway going in, but then I can also make it relate more towards the third book where it adds in Hogsmeade instead of Diagon Alley. Also because I did want to add one that was more snowy and a bit winter scented, because the other ones are all so much warmer and lighter. So I chose to make Hogsmeade in the winter, because we see it in the winter. Now, the fourth book was probably the one that I had to think about the most, because it does have many significant events. Actually, its problem might be that it has too many significant events. Well, I don't know if they're particularly significant, but they're important moments in the book, which are the 3 tasks. Now, I immediately cancelled on the maze because no one just wants to see a bunch of bushes, and 2, because eventually I would have to add in some sort of Sphinx miniature to make it more interesting, and I don't have the talent for that. And then 2, I couldn't really do the mermaid task because that would mostly only work if I had some sort of resin that made it an underwater look, unless I just wanted to do the surface of the Black Lake, which doesn't really make it that interesting. So I ultimately just went with the first task. Now, the 5th book was kind of difficult due to the lack of events. Well, I would say that they don't move set locations that much. They kind of just stay in Hogwarts. So my only option was the Room of Requirement, but the Room of Requirement in this movie in particular isn't that interesting. It's basically just walls and window panes. So I decided not to go with that and decided to go with the Gryffindor Common Room, because I was going to do a Gryffindor Common Room anyways. I didn't know which book to fit it in. At first I thought the first book, because that's when he gets sorted into Gryffindor and all, but the Hogwarts Express was a much better fit for that one. So I had this one on my list and I was like, well, I have to give it to someone. So I'll give it to the 5th book because DA and all, it makes sense that, you know, the Gryffindor spirit is rising and all, but also the only other set that I could have done was that boring version of Room of Requirement. So I think this makes sense. Now I decided to go for something a little different and easier for the 6th book because I'm probably going to be really burnt out by the time I finish all of these, but also this is kind of going to be one of those easier ones such as the Goblet of Fire. And I saw a video of someone who made a potions cabinet and it was in this shape and I fell absolutely in love. I will link it down below. But it's perfect because I've already made a potions classroom and it looks awful, so I was going to change that anyways, but I have a lot of little potions bottles, so I just want to put them to good use. And besides, Half-Blood Prince is basically a genius at potions. Now the 7th book is also a little difficult just because of how jam-packed it is with things, so I decided to represent exactly that and do the Lestrange Vault because I feel like it's, in the movies especially, it's that last tipping point before they get back to Hogwarts, and also it is jam-packed of things too, and also because I thought I could have a little bit of fun spray painting everything gold. So this is probably just going to be an easy one, but hopefully one that looks good to wrap up the series, and those are my plans. Well, I hope that you enjoyed that video. I hope that you're having a good day. I hope that you continue to have a good day, and we'll see you next time.